Hello, my foodie friends. It's me, your friendly neighborhood kid witch, Tara, and welcome to Recipes for the Cooking Impaired. And as you can see, I am ready for some cold weather. And that is because where I'm living, it's actually cold right now. But it also helps a wonderful segue into what we're making. First off, this is a viewer's request. I have not been given permission to use the name, so you know who you are. I am making this for you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. We are doing a hot dish or a casserole, depending on what area you live in. Some people say one versus the other. And it's perfect for a cold day. Rates right up there with super stew. So good. We're going to make a enchilada casserole. And I have the recipe for you. For the sauce, you're going to need 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 yellow onion diced, half a teaspoon of salt, and that could be any kind of salt, iodinized, Himalayan, kosher, any of it's fine. 2 teaspoons of cumin, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of flour. All-purpose would probably be best in this particular case. 12-ounce can of tomato sauce, and then we're also going to do a 12-ounce can of diced tomatoes. Sometimes it'll say stewed diced tomatoes. Same thing. It works. I would recommend maybe not getting any of them that have the tomato sauce or the diced tomatoes, having extra garlic or mushroom or Parmesan or any of that into it, because it's going to change the bake. And we're going to be using quite a bit of seasonings, as you can already see. Next is 1 cup of chicken stock. And then 2 cloves of garlic minced, and that's either with a garlic mince press, or just cutting up very fine. Now for the casserole portion. So this is everything we need in order to put it together, including the meat. Vegetarian friends, I am sorry, this is not a meatless meal. However, if you don't want to do the 1 pound of ground beef, you could substitute in with that black bean. We already have the black beans, but refried beans as your center, or you could do a substitution meats, a meat substitute like the Impossible Burger or tempeh or cooked up seasoned tofu. These are all options. So that is a possibility for this bake if you are not a beef eater. Next, half a teaspoon of salt and also half a teaspoon of pepper. 1 small yellow onion diced. And yes, I know we have an onion up here and an onion up here. You are going to be doing 2 small onions. Now, in a pinch, say you don't have 2 small onions, but you have 1 large onion. Cut the whole large onion up, separate it between the 2. That will also work as well. Next, we have 1 yellow and 1 red pepper. You're going to also dice this. This is getting cooked in with the meat. 12 ounces of black beans, which is already pre-cooked when you buy the can. You're going to rinse them really well. And we're going to actually be putting it in our layers. Because unlike normal enchiladas where you wrap it in the tortilla, this is more like a lasagna layered dish, which is really cool. It also tends to have less of a problem with sticking, which is good. You're going to need 12 flour tortillas, and we want the 6-inch size, so not the ginormous ones, and not the tiny, tiny ones. 6 inches. It'll make it kind of roll up on the sides of the bake a little bit, but that's good because it makes it easier to cut the enchiladas out. So that'll be the best. And then last but not least, 3 cups of either Kobe Jack cheese grated or cheddar cheese grated. Either one, or a combination of the two if that's what you prefer. Now, we went ahead and did just the Kobe Jack. And for my metric fans, I do indeed have the recipe on the back for you. Here we go. Do 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 shooby dooby doo doo dooby 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 doo. The end. You're done. Now, the other thing I would like to throw out, although we're not going to do it this time around, you can add 3 cups of cooked rice to kind of make it even more filling, and or to kind of stretch your meal. So I would recommend this, like if you're going to, say, go to a potluck or go to a party and bring the dish. If you add the extra rice, people are going to be taking smaller cuts. It'll last a lot longer and stretch it out. Also useful, add the flour in, because then you can kind of spread things out a bit. But we're not actually going to add the 3 cups of rice, but this is an option. Another option is, instead of doing the yellow and red peppers, you could do green peppers or a combination of all 3. The only thing is if you're going to add an additional pepper instead of replacing, then I would recommend doing half of each, so that it's not overpowering and just more green, red, and yellow pepper than it is everything else. All right, friends, let's go in the kitchen and start this bake. All right, so we have 1 pound of ground beef. Now, there is an option if you're not a beef eater. You can do chicken. You just have to cut it thin and you have to cook it just like we're doing with the beef, as far as making sure it's fully cooked before we put it into the casserole. This keeps it from being a possibility of getting anything in the meat that we don't want in the meat. So we're going to start to brown that, and then we'll be adding our vegetables and our seasonings. And being that this is hamburger, this is beef, we're going to have to drain some of the grease. Alright, so now you can see the meat is starting to brown ever so slightly. We're going to go ahead and put in all of our red peppers, all of our yellow peppers. Another option for this is that instead of doing the red pepper, you can do yellow pepper and green pepper as another option. We're also going to add our onion and mix it all together. We want our vegetables fully cooked down with the meat before it goes into the enchilada casserole. While you're doing this as well, I'd recommend preheating your oven for 350. Once the meat is cooked down and drained, we're going to be making our homemade sauce that will be going in. So we'll give this a moment to cook down a bit. Alright, so our meat and vegetable has been cooked down. As you can see, quite a bit more brown. It's not complete, but it's pretty close. It's been drained. There, as you can see, very little grease left in the pan. And we're going to add in our salt and pepper next. So that's half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of salt, and then we'll add our half a teaspoon of pepper, and that's just going to finish cooking down with the meat. Once this is done, we'll set it aside to make our sauce. Okay. Alright, now that our salt and pepper is in, we'll just stir it up a bit, and we'll give it a few more minutes to cook before we take it off the heat. Okay, so our meat is now ready. We're going to go ahead and put a lid over it and just set it off to the side. any residual pink that's left will finish cooking in the oven, but we want it mostly cooked and ready to go. All right, we're going to start with our tomato sauce. This is just a traditional flavoring, not really a lot added to it. I'd steer clear of tomato sauce that has extra onion or garlic flavor because we are adding that in to cook. Just like with the meat, this is just on medium, and we're going to be adding in all the good flavors. All right, medium heat. We are now going to add in the diced tomato. Okay, wonderful. All right. Next is our chicken stock. And we're doing 1 cup. Go ahead and stir that in. Wonderful. I'm going to put in our 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Okay. Now and from here we're going to also add in our vegetables. We have our 1 small yellow onion and our garlic, 2 cloves that's been minced. And we're going to put that in to start simmering. We want the idea is to get the onions nice and soft and for the garlic to permeate into the sauce. Now, if you don't have a garlic press, as you can see, ours is very, very well minced. It's very small. You would just cut up the clove as small as you could with a knife. All right, and then next is going to be our 2 teaspoons of cumin. And then our 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Now this is not to be confused with paprika. They're very similar in color. It's also not cayenne pepper. They also are similar in color. This is chili powder. Easy to mix them up. I've done it myself. All right, and our last but not least of our seasoning is our 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, if you're trying to keep a close eye on your sodium, you'll still want to use your 1/2 teaspoon of salt, but then opt for the lower sodium chicken stock. Those are options to kind of help keep things in check. But you really need the salt to kind of help get the right flavoring for this. So we're going to stir it up a little bit, and then we're going to let this simmer on the stove. So we're going to stir this up for a little bit, and we're going to let it simmer on the stove before we add our very last ingredient, which is the tablespoon of flour. All right, now that the vegetables have started to cook down, we're going to put in a little bit of flour at a time and stir it in. That way it doesn't clump. This will help give it a good thickness so it's not too watery. All right, once the flour is fully stirred in, then go ahead and turn off the heat, and we're going to start assembling our casserole. Again, if you haven't preheated the oven for 350, please do so now. Alright guys, this part is going to be the interesting portion. You got your pan ready to go for your enchiladas, but we have to put each individual of the enchilada tortillas, or regular tortillas, the flour tortillas, into the sauce. Move these out of the way here. And we're going to put them in the bottom of the pan. And just kind of spread them out, and we're going to do a full layer. We're doing all 6. So you don't want to see the bottom of the pan at all. By the time we get all 6 in, it'll be perfect. Yes, I know you might be thinking, wait a minute, Tara. The instructions say you need 12 flour tortillas. Well, my dear friends, my foodie buddies, you are going to use all 6 to start with in the bottom. And then you're going to use the rest of the 6, making a nice 12 total for the second layer. So this is kind of like making an enchilada lasagna thing. You know how lasagnas have layers? This enchilada casserole's got layers too. So we're going to keep getting these put on. And I'll go ahead and time-lapse it for you so that it goes a little faster. Alright guys, there is our first 6. We are now going to add in half of the meat, and then we'll add in half a can of beans and our 1.5 cups of cheese. We'll end with the meat and cheese as well. Alright, now half a can of the beans, and we'll just kind of spread it out. And again, these are black beans. Make sure that you drain them, and I would prefer and recommend rinsing them very well before you actually put them into your bake or pretty much any recipe. The reason you want to rinse some of it is that it gets some of that extra enzyme that's in beans out that kind of has a tendency to aid in the fruity aroma that periodically is accompanied with beans. Alright, now we're going to put our package of Kobe Jack, or if you chose, cheddar. Alright, and so once that's all spread out well, we'll add our very last layer of enchilada toppings. Alright, at this time we're going to pour some of the enchilada sauce over our layers, leaving just a bit for the meat. So I'd say using about 3/4 of it. Leaving just enough to cover the meat for the end of our very last layer. And now we're going to add the last of our meat and just kind of spread it out. And at that point, we'll put on our beans, the last of the sauce, and our final layer of cheese. And then before it goes into the oven to cook for 30 minutes, we'll be putting a lovely covering of tin foil over it. I know it's a bit of a sloppy sound, but oh, it's going to taste so good. And finally, we're topping the last of our cheese. And then we're going to put our tin foil over the top and put it in the oven for 30 minutes. Okay, the enchilada is out of the oven and it looks amazing. Enchilada casserole. Give this puppy a bite. And thanks again, viewer, for putting this suggestion out there. You know who you are. Have a good one. Love your faces. Bye. Mwah!